Johnny Walker is preparing for a significant shift in his career as he targets a move up to the heavyweight division, where he is expected to face former Professional Fighters League champion Ante Delija in what would mark his debut in the UFC's heaviest weight class. The Brazilian light heavyweight, long known for his explosive style and fan-friendly approach, is coming off a disappointing outing against Dominic Reyes at UFC 327, a fight that failed to deliver on expectations and left fans in attendance at the Kaseya Center restless due to its unusually slow pace. What many anticipated would be an action-packed contest instead turned into a cautious and drawn-out affair, ultimately resulting in Walker losing a split decision while Reyes edged closer to another potential title opportunity, adding further frustration to a performance that contrasted sharply with Walker's earlier success, including a main event victory over Zhang Min Yang just months prior in August. Leading up to that event, Walker had already hinted at the possibility of moving up in weight, citing the strain of repeated weight cuts to 205 pounds, and in the wake of his latest setback, those plans now appear to be taking concrete shape, as reports indicate he has verbally agreed to face Delija at a UFC Fight Night scheduled for August 1st in Belgrade, Serbia, an event that would represent the promotion's first visit to the country and currently has no other fights publicly announced. Delija enters the matchup looking to rebound from consecutive losses to Waldo Cortez Acosta and Sergey Spivak, having joined the UFC in 2025 after a successful run in the PFL, where he established himself as a champion and a formidable presence in the heavyweight ranks. And he also carries the added distinction of being a key training partner of current UFC heavyweight champion Tom Aspinall, further underlining the level of competition Walker will face in his debut. For Walker, this transition represents both an opportunity and a risk, as his athleticism and creativity could translate well against larger opponents, yet questions surrounding his durability, which have surfaced in several recent bouts, are likely to be tested even more intensely against the division's hardest hitters, making this matchup not only a fresh start, but also a defining moment in determining how far his talents can carry him in a new and more punishing landscape. Veteran UFC lightweight Beneil Dariush is heading into one of the most pivotal fights of his career under a cloud of uncertainty as he prepares to face surgeon prospect Quillan Salkild in the co-main event of UFC Perth, while dealing with a frustrating and potentially impactful eye injury that surfaced in the final hours before the bout, adding an unexpected layer of adversity to an already high-pressure situation. The matchup, which serves as the penultimate fight before the headline showdown between Jack Della Maddalena and Carlos Prates, carries significant implications for Dariush, not only because of the challenge posed by a dangerous and fast-rising opponent, but also because it could represent one of the last times he steps into the octagon, as speculation continues about how much longer the seasoned contender intends to compete at the highest level of the sport. Coming off a long and demanding career filled with battles against elite competition, Dariush is seeking to build momentum once more and secure a meaningful victory, especially since his last win came against Renato Moicano at UFC 317 last year, a performance that showcased his technical ability and resilience, but has yet to be followed up with another statement result. As with most fighters enduring the grueling nature of a training camp, Dariush has dealt with the usual wear and tear that accompanies preparation for a high-level fight. But his current situation stands out due to the repetitive and somewhat unusual nature of the injury affecting his eye, which is visibly swollen and drawing concern just days before competition. During a recent interview, the issue became apparent when his eye caught attention, prompting him to explain that the problem initially arose from what he believes could have been either an accidental clash of heads or a strike that landed awkwardly near the eye during training, something that might typically be brushed off as routine in a fighter's preparation. Yet the situation escalated when the same area was aggravated again shortly afterward, when he was accidentally clipped by a fingernail, causing further swelling and irritation in an already sensitive spot. This sequence of incidents has left him dealing with a recurring problem that, while described by him as minor in isolation, becomes more concerning due to its timing and persistence, especially considering how critical clear vision and depth perception are when facing a dangerous opponent who is likely to push the pace from the opening moments of the fight. The potential impact of the injury becomes even more pronounced when considering Salkild's style and momentum, as the younger fighter enters the bout with confidence and the intention of making a statement against a respected veteran, meaning that any vulnerability, particularly one affecting vision or defensive awareness, could be quickly exploited if Dariush is not able to fully manage the issue once the fight begins. An early, clean strike landing on or near the compromised eye could immediately shift the dynamics of the contest, forcing Dariush into a reactive position and testing not only his physical durability, but also his ability to adapt under pressure in real time. Despite these concerns, Dariush has shown no indication of backing down or altering his approach mentally, instead leaning into the toughness and composure that have defined his career, signaling that he is fully prepared to step into the cage and compete regardless of the setback, understanding that moments like these often shape a fighter's legacy. Khamzat Chimaev appears largely unfazed by the recent controversy surrounding Sean Strickland's inflammatory comments, brushing off the situation with calm indifference, even as the build-up to their UFC 328 title fight grows increasingly heated and unpredictable, with the rivalry taking on a more intense tone following a series of verbal exchanges that have pushed the boundaries of typical pre-fight trash talk. Strickland, who has built a reputation for blunt and often controversial statements, raised eyebrows when he escalated the rhetoric by suggesting he would resort to using a firearm if Chimaev and his team attempted to confront him outside the controlled environment of the octagon, a remark that sparked concern among fans and observers, given the seriousness of the implication, especially in a sport already defined by physical confrontation. Despite the noise surrounding the situation, Chimaev's reaction has been notably composed, as revealed by his coach, Alan Nascimento, who explained that the fighter only became aware of the comments after they were shown to him, and responded not with anger or concern, but with laughter, before immediately returning his focus to training, reinforcing the idea that he is mentally locked in on the fight itself rather than the surrounding drama. According to Nascimento, this level-headed response is not surprising, given that Chimaev and his team had anticipated the possibility of provocative statements as the fight began to take shape, suggesting that they had already prepared themselves for the kind of psychological warfare that often accompanies high-profile matchups, and as a result, nothing that has been said so far has managed to disrupt their focus or alter their preparation. From their perspective, Strickland's comments, particularly those involving threats of violence outside the cage, cross a line into territory that feels unnecessary and disconnected from the reality of the sport, with Nascimento openly dismissing the notion that things would ever escalate to that level, emphasizing that while verbal sparring is part of the promotional aspect of fighting, there remains an understanding that the actual conflict is meant to be resolved within the rules and confines of competition. The situation has nonetheless added an extra layer of tension to an already highly anticipated bout, as Strickland's history as a vocal gun owner and his willingness to openly discuss such topics in the context of a fight promotion have prompted increased attention both from fans and UFC officials, who are reportedly taking additional precautions to ensure that Fight Week proceeds without incident, including heightened security measures during media obligations leading up to the May 9th event. This heightened awareness reflects a broader concern about how far promotional antics can go before they begin to overshadow the sport itself, particularly when references to real-world violence blur the line between entertainment and genuine risk. As a result, even routine elements such as a pre-fight stare-down have come into question, with speculation about whether the two fighters will be kept apart to avoid any potential escalation before they officially meet inside the cage. Amid all of this, Chimaev's composed demeanor stands in stark contrast to the chaos of the narrative surrounding the fight, as he continues to approach the contest with a focus on preparation and performance rather than engaging in the back-and-forth theatrics, signaling a confidence that his actions on fight night will ultimately speak louder than any words exchanged in the lead-up. At the same time, the clash in personalities between the two fighters has undoubtedly heightened interest in the matchup, turning it into more than just a contest for the title, but also a test of contrasting approaches to competition, one rooted in calculated intensity and the other in unfiltered expression, ensuring that when they finally step into the octagon, the stakes will feel as personal as they are professional. Former UFC bantamweight champion Merab Dvalishvili is going against the grain with a bold prediction for the long-awaited clash between Gina Carano and Ronda Rousey, and it's based on what he's personally witnessed in training. The fight, set for May 16th at the Intuit Dome in Englewood, marks a historic moment. Carano will be competing for the first time in 17 years, while Rousey returns after nearly a decade away from MMA competition. Despite that massive layoff, Dvalishvili believes the outcome may surprise fans who are heavily favoring Rowdy. Training alongside Carano at Syndicate MMA in Las Vegas under coach John Wood, Dvalishvili has had a first-row seat to her preparation, and he's come away seriously impressed. He described the experience as an honor, admitting that Carano exceeded his expectations in every way. According to him, her sharpness, physicality, and overall skill set don't resemble someone who's been out of the sport for nearly 2 decades. Dvalishvili didn't just praise her, he made a decisive call. He believes Carano will win. That's a notable stance considering Ronda Rousey's legacy. A former Olympic judoka and one of the most dominant champions in UFC history, Rousey built her reputation on elite grappling and armbar submissions. Even now, many see her as the safer pick due to her experience at the highest level, but Dvalishvili sees a different story unfolding. Interestingly, he also comes from a judo background just like Rousey, which gives him a unique perspective on how that skill set translates in modern MMA. And rather than siding with the more decorated judoka, he believes Carano's overall game could neutralize that advantage. He even went as far as to suggest that Carano's performance might challenge perceptions of both UFC fighters and traditional judo specialists, implying her style and effectiveness could disrupt expectations across the board. That's a strong claim, especially given Carano's long absence in the evolution of MMA since her prime. The sport today is far more well-rounded, with fighters expected to excel in multiple disciplines rather than rely on a single base. Still, Dvalishvili's confidence stems from first-hand experience, not hype or nostalgia. The matchup itself carries plenty of intrigue beyond just the prediction. It headlines the first MMA event to air on Netflix, promoted by Most Valuable Promotions, and also features other high-profile names like Francis Ngannou and Nate Diaz. The spectacle alone guarantees massive attention, but the uncertainty around both fighters adds an extra layer of drama. For Carano, it's a chance to prove she still belongs at an elite level despite the layoff. For Rousey, it's an opportunity to rewrite the narrative after her last appearances ended in devastating knockout losses. Dvalishvili's prediction may not reflect the betting odds or mainstream expectations, but if he's right, this could become one of the most shocking comeback victories in MMA history. Whether that confidence proves justified or not, one thing is clear: this fight is anything but predictable. The latest exchange between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Arman Tsarukyan has added unexpected intrigue to the lightweight landscape, with the former champion firmly rejecting claims that Russian President Vladimir Putin financially supported his career. Tsarukyan's comments suggested that Nurmagomedov received help building gyms and covering expenses, a narrative that quickly spread given the well-documented public interactions between Nurmagomedov and Putin, especially in the aftermath of UFC 229. That moment, which saw Nurmagomedov defeat Conor McGregor and later receive congratulations from Putin, has long fueled speculation about their relationship. Still, Nurmagomedov wasted no time shutting the idea down, stating clearly that no one paid his bills or financed his facilities. The firmness of that response highlights how seriously Nurmagomedov takes his public image. Throughout his career, he has emphasized discipline, self-reliance, and the values instilled by his father and team. Suggestions of outside financial backing, especially from a political figure, risk undermining that narrative, which is likely why he addressed it so directly rather than letting it fade. For Tsarukyan, the situation reflects his growing presence, not just as a contender, but as a personality willing to speak openly and sometimes provocatively. He has consistently shown respect toward Nurmagomedov's achievements inside the cage, but this particular claim crossed into more sensitive territory. Whether it was meant as a casual remark or a pointed observation, it inevitably drew a reaction because of the broader implications tied to it. There's also a strategic element to moments like this. Tsarukyan is pushing toward a title shot in one of UFC's most competitive divisions, and staying in the headlines, whether through performances or comments, helps maintain that momentum. At the same time, this exchange doesn't necessarily signal a deep personal feud. The dynamic between the two has largely been one of competitive tension rather than hostility. Tsarukyan has often spoken highly of Nurmagomedov's skill set and legacy, and this appears more like a moment of friction than a lasting rift. Still, it serves as a reminder of how quickly narratives can shift in modern MMA, where interviews, podcasts, and social media clips can amplify a single comment into a major talking point. The broader takeaway is about control of legacy. For Nurmagomedov, maintaining the story of how he rose to the top with hard work, team structure, and personal sacrifice is essential to how he is remembered. Any suggestion that external forces played a decisive role challenges that perception, which explains the decisive nature of his response. Meanwhile, Tsarukyan continues to walk the line between contender and headline maker. As his profile grows, so does the scrutiny around everything he says and does. This moment may not have direct implications for matchmaking, but it reinforces that he's becoming a central figure in the division's ongoing narrative, not just for what he does in the cage, but for how he shapes conversations outside of it. In the end, the exchange is less about proving who is right and more about how both fighters manage their reputations in a sport where legacy, perception, and storytelling are constantly evolving alongside the action itself.
Jorge Masvidal isn't throwing around the BMF label casually, and in his view, Ilia Topuria has now surpassed Alex Pereira as the UFC's most legitimate, baddest active star. Masvidal, who famously claimed the inaugural BMF belt by defeating Nate Diaz at UFC 244, has remained closely tied to the identity of that symbolic title. So when he ranks today's fighters, it carries weight. And while Pereira's terrifying knockout power and two-division success make him an obvious candidate, Masvidal believes Topuria's current run is simply too dominant to ignore. Topuria's resume over the last couple of years reads like a blueprint for modern superstardom. He dethroned Alexander Volkanovski in emphatic fashion, then followed that up by knocking out Max Holloway, a fighter widely respected for his durability and volume. Holloway had just captured the BMF title prior to that loss, which only strengthened Topuria's unofficial claim to the baddest label. Add in his undefeated record, relentless pressure, and confidence, and it's clear why Masvidal sees him as the new standard. Still, Pereira's case is far from weak. Masvidal placed him firmly at number 2, praising his global appeal and reputation as one of the most feared strikers in combat sports. Pereira's ability to deliver brutal knockouts on the biggest stages, from middleweight to light heavyweight and now flirting with heavyweight, has made him a centerpiece of the UFC's current era. His calm demeanor, combined with explosive finishing ability, gives him a unique aura that few fighters can match. Masvidal's broader list highlights just how competitive the BMF conversation has become. Khamzat Chimaev lands at number 3 thanks to his relentless smash-heavy style and aura of dominance. Sean Strickland earns a spot largely due to his polarizing personality and willingness to fight anyone while constantly generating headlines. And Charles Oliveira, the current BMF belt holder, after defeating Holloway, rounds out the top 5, backed by his fan-friendly style and global popularity. What makes the BMF debate so compelling is that it isn't strictly about belts or rankings, it's about presence, excitement, and the ability to create moments fans remember. In that sense, Masvidal's pick signals a shift in the UFC landscape, from established icons like Pereira to a new wave led by Topuria, who blends skill, confidence, and highlight real violence in a way that resonates with modern audiences. The timing of this conversation is also important. Topuria is set to face Justin Gaethje, one of the most action-oriented fighters in UFC history, on the massive White House card. That matchup is almost tailor-made to define the BMF identity. Two aggressive fighters, both known for delivering chaos inside the octagon. If Topuria can produce another emphatic finish against someone like Gaethje, it wouldn't just validate Masvidal's opinion, it could cement his status as the UFC's premier BMF in the eyes of fans worldwide. On the flip side, a Gaethje win would completely reshape the conversation again, proving just how fluid and unpredictable this unofficial title really is. Either way, the BMF debate is alive and evolving, and right now, Topuria sits right at the center of it.
Francis Ngannou knows Ciryl Gane better than most, and that's exactly why he's cautioning against overlooking him ahead of his showdown with Alex Pereira. With the interim heavyweight title on the line at UFC Freedom 250, much of the hype has centered around Pereira's meteoric rise and knockout power. But Ngannou sees a far more complicated fight than many fans are expecting, pointing to Gane's movement, technique, and overall skill set as serious problems for the Brazilian. From Ngannou's perspective, this isn't just striker versus striker, it's a clash of styles where subtle differences could decide everything. While Pereira is known for his devastating power and precision, Gane brings a level of fluidity and footwork rarely seen at heavyweight. He doesn't just stand and trade, he glides, manages distance, and forces opponents into uncomfortable positions. That dynamic could be crucial. Pereira has found enormous success by controlling range and establishing his timing, but Gane's mobility might disrupt that rhythm. If Pereira can't plant his feet and establish his timing, his biggest weapon, his knockout power, becomes harder to deploy effectively. Ngannou's warning essentially comes down to this: Gane is not the type of opponent who will play into Pereira's strengths. There's also the question of adaptation. Pereira has already proven he can transition across weight classes and deal with different styles, but heavyweight presents a new level of complexity. Gane, a natural heavyweight with years of experience in the division, understands its pace, physicality, and nuances far better than most. Ngannou's own history with Gane adds weight to his words. Having shared the cage with him, he's experienced firsthand how tricky and technical Gane can be, even in fights where he's not landing big shots. It's that ability to control space and dictate tempo that makes him dangerous, not just his striking output. Still, Pereira's path to victory is obvious and always looming. He doesn't need many openings to change a fight, and his composure under pressure has become one of his defining traits. If he finds Gane clean, the fight could end instantly, regardless of how competitive it's been up to that point. That contrast is what makes this matchup so compelling. Gane represents the more traditional, movement-based heavyweight striker, while Pereira embodies raw efficiency and finishing ability. One thrives on control over time, the other on decisive moments. Ngannou's warning doesn't mean he's counting Pereira out, it's more a reminder that this is far from a foregone conclusion. In fact, it may be one of the most finely balanced fights on the card, despite public perception leaning toward Pereira's star power. With the stakes high and the setting historic, this fight could hinge on who imposes their style first. If Gane can keep it technical and elusive, he could frustrate Pereira over rounds. But if Pereira cuts the cage and lands clean, Ngannou's warning might quickly be forgotten. Either way, it's a matchup where danger exists on both sides, and according to Ngannou, Pereira might be walking into one of the trickiest stylistic tests of his career.
Arman Tsarukyan has addressed the growing speculation surrounding his frequent social media appearances with Nina Marie Danielle, making it clear that their chemistry is strictly for content, not something deeper. Over the past year, Tsarukyan has leaned heavily into entertainment alongside his fighting career, appearing in skits and collaborations that have expanded his reach beyond the octagon. Danielle, who has quickly become one of the most recognizable personalities in MMA media, has featured prominently in that content. Her unconventional interview style and viral approach have helped her rise fast, but also drawn criticism and scrutiny from parts of the fan base. Because of how natural the two appeared together on camera, fans began questioning whether their relationship extended beyond content creation. Tsarukyan shut that down directly, explaining that what people see online is essentially a performance. According to him, the two are simply close friends who enjoy working together and producing engaging videos. He emphasized that their dynamic is built on mutual respect and professionalism rather than anything romantic, adding that if there were something more personal going on, it likely wouldn't be broadcast publicly in the way their content is. He also pointed out an important detail often overlooked in the speculation. Danielle is in a committed relationship. Her boyfriend, Janelle Castillo, plays a major role behind the scenes, helping film and produce much of the content that fans see. That collaborative setup further reinforces that their videos are structured projects rather than spontaneous glimpses into a personal relationship. Tsarukyan's own personal life adds more context as well. The lightweight contender is married and keeps his family life largely private, a contrast to his increasingly public online persona. While he's embraced the spotlight in terms of lifestyle and content, he's clearly drawn a line when it comes to personal relationships. The situation highlights a broader trend in modern MMA, where fighters are building brands that extend far beyond fighting. Collaborations with influencers and content creators are becoming more common, and the lines between entertainment and reality can sometimes blur for audiences. In this case, Tsarukyan is making it clear where that line is. The chemistry with Nina Marie Danielle might feel authentic, and that's likely why it works, but it's ultimately part of a content strategy, not a real-life romance. For Tsarukyan, it's just another way of staying visible and relevant while he continues his push toward a UFC title shot.
As UFC 328 approaches, the spotlight is firmly on Khamzat Chimaev and whether his trademark intensity will be enough to overwhelm Sean Strickland. But according to Aljamain Sterling, the biggest challenge for the champion might not be physical, it could be strategic. Sterling believes Chimaev is entering the fight conflicted, caught between two approaches that could define the outcome. On one hand, Chimaev's identity has been built on explosive starts, fast pressure, immediate takedowns, and early finishes. That formula has worked against top names like Dricus du Plessis and Kevin Holland, where he imposed his will before opponents had time to settle. But Strickland presents a very different kind of problem. Known for his durability, high-volume striking, and relentless cardio, Strickland tends to get stronger as fights go on rather than fading. That creates a dilemma for Chimaev. Does he go all in early, risking exhaustion if the finish doesn't come, or does he pace himself and potentially give Strickland time to establish rhythm on the feet? Sterling's point is that either choice carries risk. If Chimaev empties the tank trying to secure a first-round finish and fails, he could find himself in deep water against a fighter who thrives in later rounds. On the flip side, if he holds back, he might allow Strickland to drag the fight into a drawn-out striking battle, something that clearly favors the challenger. That tension is what makes the matchup so compelling. Chimaev is still the favorite, and for good reason. His wrestling remains one of the most dominant weapons in MMA, and few fighters have shown the ability to consistently stop it. If he's able to impose that game early, it could be another short night at the office. However, Strickland's path to victory is just as clear. Survive the opening storm, force extended exchanges, and capitalize on any dip in Chimaev's pace. We've seen glimpses before, moments where Chimaev's output slows and opponents begin to find success. Against someone as methodical and durable as Strickland, those moments could be decisive. What adds another layer is the mental side. Chimaev has often fought with pure aggression, but this is a different kind of test, one that may require patience, discipline, and adaptability. If Sterling is right, the real battle could be which version of Chimaev shows up, the relentless finisher or the measured strategist. For Strickland, the mission is simpler but no less difficult. He knows exactly what's coming and has built his entire camp around stopping it. The question is whether preparation will translate when he's facing one of the most explosive starts in the sport. In the end, this isn't just a clash of styles, it's a clash of pacing, decision-making, and composure under pressure. If Chimaev resolves that conflict the right way, he likely retains his belt. If not, Strickland has a very real chance to turn the fight into something far more complicated and potentially pull off the upset.